Good afternoon, Joe. Welcome to another SCUBLA decompression event. And today is the 21st of June, happens to be the summer solstice, the longest day of the year.
I actually did not know that, Dave. So I'm kind of bummed because that means we're like halfway through summer, kind of. It's the longest day of the year, so we're halfway.
We're halfway. We're gonna cruise on down to December when we get to the shortest day at the winter solstice. So there we go. Everything's downhill from here, or at least down
cycle.
Yeah.
Everything's cyclical. I was talking to one of my clients about that today. Everything's cyclical.
Well, talking about cyclical activity, one of the things that we wanted to address today, and we've got some slides to go about this, has to do with sort of an enhancement or taking it to the next step on the topic that we discussed last time, which had to do with customer service. And because one of the things that you and I were discussing was that every person who's in a company, when they interact with someone, an internal customer or an external customer, has an opportunity, because that's a moment in time that they can increase or decrease the credibility or the of the company, or the perception of the company in the eyes of whoever it is that they're interacting with. So
that's right.
So that's important for any kind of business, right?
It's important. It also goes, dives into the culture of the company and everything else. Everything you say about your company to friends, family, everything is part of the culture of the company. When somebody knows that you're working somewhere, and how you talk about that company is a representation of that company and yourself.
Yeah, makes sense. Well,
so I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit. It's interesting that a lot of companies don't train their teams on what to say whenever someone says, "Hey, you work at brainSHARE. What do you think about that company?" And they don't give them some guidelines of, "Hey, how should you talk about my company? What should you say? Hey, what a great company. They're a privately held company. They provide great training. They provide this, and this. And we deliver services to this target market."
I think what you just said, I want to comment on that too, because the relevance of that, obviously, but there is the value of providing a set of sound bites, if you want to call them that, or descriptive phrases, is that of consistency, so that everyone has the opportunity to communicate about the organization in a consistent manner, which then helps to establish the company's persona in the public eye, rather than everybody, if you've got 5 or 50 or 500 or 5,000 or 500,000 people saying something different each time, it can get rather muddled.
Yeah, and that's not saying that it has to be verbatim on this. You're gonna say things the way you want to say them. It's not taking away the personality or the communication, but it's giving you some tools to communicate in a consistent manner.
Yeah, so your concepts that you communicate are the same. Got it.
That's right.
So let's get into this conversation about these moments, because I thought that from what we were talking about the other day, that this is like very significant, leveraging the moments. And I use the singular here, but there's multiple. Every time you have an interaction with someone, an internal customer or an external customer, you have an opportunity to share, to leverage a moment. So let's get into that, because you were saying,
and I actually like the singularity of it, because every moment is a specific instance.
That's true. That's true. It's a unique individual point in time or an opportunity.
Just like being in the present.
Right. So let's talk about this. We had looked at this sort of thing before in the customer service hierarchy, and I thought your way of describing it was really cool. So I'm going to click on these things and you can talk about them as they come up. So these are the I think it was the 5 different levels that you might experience, right?
Yeah, ecstatic, and tell people, this is your raving fans. This
Mhm.
is the ones you go say, hey, you got to go here. You got to go talk to BrainShare because they are awesome. They'll help you achieve your goals.
Got it. And then you had the ones that consider that you're really a great company.
You're a great company. They're fantastic. Hey, definitely recommend them.
Okay. Then you got the middle of the rotors.
Yeah, they're okay.
So they don't say anything bad, but don't necessarily say anything good. It's just
Yeah,
like, okay, fine. I got what I asked for. I got what I paid for, and that's okay.
Yeah. There's no wow factor there. You met expectations. Great is you exceed the expectations, and ecstatic is you exceed the expectations and you made them feel good about it.
Got it. And then there's the level of frustration.
Hey, you didn't do what you said or what I thought you were supposed to do.
So frustration comes from different things, right? There might be frustration about the quality of the actual product that was delivered or service that was delivered. So there may have been something, if it's a physical thing, there may have been something wrong with it. It was damaged. It didn't work when you turned it on, whatever, but then there's frustration level with the interaction with the people. And both of these are able to be addressed through what? Training, yeah?
You're training, and not only, well, let's talk about it. It's not just stuff that you have control over, but it could be, hey, it didn't arrive when we said that. So that is still the perception from the client or customer that that's your problem. You didn't select the right shipping method. You didn't do this. The perception, and perception is reality, is that you did not meet my expectations. So either the expectations weren't set correctly or our processes weren't incorrectly. Either way is a training issue.
You said something really profound there when you said sometimes these things that create challenges are not within your control. But if you communicate about them to the customer, does that help mitigate some of that frustration?
Absolutely. Now, should we be going, hey, it's not my fault. It's to me, guess what? Everything is your fault, because if you sent it via UPS and it didn't get there on time, then you selected the wrong vendor. If but by putting the blame on somebody else, that does not help the situation.
Got it.
The situation is, hey, we didn't meet your expectations. What can we do to make it right?
Got it.
Now, that's not saying that you're going to do exactly what makes it right, but what we can say is, here's what we can do.
Here's what we can
to
do.
help us. Here's what we can do. I can't send you a check for $2 million because your $5 widget didn't get there on time.
Right.
But what I can do is, let me send you another widget. Let me upgrade you to this. There are things you can do that cost very little money that can change and move that person from frustration on up.
Got it. But if you don't deal with them, it can lead you down to the next level where you get the angry, I don't ever want to do business with you again.
and that typically comes from not the initial situation, but how we respond to that initial situation.
Yeah, makes sense.
Most people understand things aren't always going to work exactly right. It's how we respond to that situation to bring them up to the next, to at least the next level, if not the next level up.
Got it. Okay, well, this is like what gives us this level of activity. But the thing that takes us to this deeper level is the recognition of who it is that interacts with the customer, who interfaces with your customer anyway. Because a lot of times people think, oh, there's two kinds of people that interface with my customer. There's the service guys after the sale, and there's the salespeople at the beginning of the sale. And that's all they think about.
I'm not a sales guy. Why do I have to get trained on this?
Right.
I've heard that over and over again. I'm in accounting. Why do I have to get trained on how to communicate to a customer? I don't talk to customers. Well, guess what? Everybody has a customer, whether it's internal or external.
Right. And that you mentioned accounting, accounts receivable, accounts payable people. And this is real interesting because, we both in our careers worked for companies, larger firms, who had clients, customers, where the accounts receivable department needed to communicate with the customer about whatever, hey, the invoice, it's 92 days late. What can we do about that? Do you have any situation? And the difference in coming in as like, a freight train trying to run them over versus someone who's speaking to another human being to try to figure out what can be done to resolve a problem. That's a night and day situation, and it impacts the perception of your company.
It's huge. Hey, you owe us money, pay us now. Or, hey, we must have not got the invoice to you correctly, or maybe we didn't get the invoice to you correctly, or is there a problem? Or hey, we don't know what the situation is until we have a dialogue with them as a human being.
Right, exactly. And those are interfaces with the customer. So it takes you into this other whole area of an organization that typically thinks that it doesn't have to worry about customer relationship activity or training, and shines the light on that and says, oh yeah, well, maybe you do. And there was another one that you and I talked about, the people in the shipping and receiving department.
Absolutely.
If the product doesn't arrive, who gets the call?
Hey, and when it goes there, if they haven't been trained, hey, we shipped it out. It's not my problem.
Yeah.
Well, is that, what, you tell me that's going to make me a little grumpy.
Right. Very cool. All right. So these are those kind of areas, which then takes us.
Go ahead.
You go ahead. You have a comment.
I think there might be one more, Dave.
Well, oh yeah, that's right. It's the everyone. Everyone.
Isn't that interesting? So everyone needs some level of customer service training, internal, external, on how to talk about your company, how to escalate to the appropriate person. So, I mean, you may be, in, an admin assistant or whatever, somewhere in the company, in operations, in production, or whatever. Somebody may ask you, hey, I'm having a problem with this. If you've got a little bit of training about, oh, you know what, I don't know the answer to that, but let me find the right person. To me, that just understanding that and saying that makes a huge difference.
You mentioned that, and it made me think of the reception people at a company who, when you call up, they answer the phone, and that they are there to direct and channel the communication to the right location. But if they are not empathetic to what's going on with the person that calls in, whether they're calling in to sell them something, calling in with a problem, or calling in to set up an appointment with the CEO to give them a gift, doesn't matter. There needs to be some kind of empathetic communication.
Yeah, or at least, hey, I'm not the right person. Let me find out. I'll get to you by this date and time, and then you better get to them by that date and time.
Right.
That's taking accountability and responsibility for that communication aspect of things, and that's just part of the training. That, hey, if you say, hey, I'm going to find this out, you make sure you find it out and get back. And if you're not sure, escalate. One of the other training things that many companies miss is the escalation process. Hey, I don't know who to talk to, but let's get that escalated. We talked about that last week.
So one of the challenges that I hear, and I know you've heard from companies, when you talk about this kind of training regimen, is I don't have time to put people through all of this stuff. There's too much going on. So how do you deal with that? What do you tell
them? Let me make sure I understand the question. Is it the customer that's saying, I don't have time for this?
No.
It's the employee.
It's the company's leadership
that says, I don't have time for this.
I don't have time to put my people through training. They got so much else to do.
That's right. How much time is it going to take on the other side of things? So training is one of the best investments in time you can make, because typically with that little bit of training, it brings it minimizes problems into the future. If you don't do that training, listen, 10% of time on planning saves you 90% of the time to do it. Guess what? You're going to get sucked into these, by having, you know, a 15 minutes of training will save you hours and hours and hours. It's almost always a great investment. So
It'll
if you don't
save
have
you,
time,
yes, because the challenge, if it's not dealt with, or if the communication isn't handled right initially, it results in multiple other communication activities, each of which consumes time, and depending upon the situation, could cost you money because you have to give something away.
and it may not be for my, well, that's not my department. No, but it is, you are part of the company.
Right, right. Well,
And it may, oh, my team doesn't have time for this. Well, guess what? Your time, there's a minimal investment that'll give you enough information to say, okay, how do I get to the right place? And it will save that your department, the individuals, and the company time, energy, and money.
you're right. And that really takes us back to looking at this kind of a concept here, because everything that we're talking about is what does one of two things. It either eliminates some of these challenges, or it helps to raise the person back up. And so, or, you know, and what you had talked about is that these two down here, if you're addressing this right and you've trained your people properly in the area of how to communicate with your clients, you can move them from this level of frustration and or anger up to, you know, the high level of ecstasy and being a,
yeah, they may not get that ecstatic, but they'll probably get to, hey, you know what? They were great. They handled my problem.
right.
And to me, you know, if you can move up 2 levels, you're doing pretty doggone good. You need to move them up at least 1 level. Otherwise, we definitely need more training. So you need to move them up 1 level, 2 level is where you want to be. And people understand stuff's, you know, stuff's going to happen. How we respond to that with the appropriate training and giving the right tools to the team that's on that front line or doing the communication is the key to that. And it doesn't take a lot of energy to provide that level of training.
Got it. Okay, so I'm going to ask you, I'm going to stop this thing here, go back to, stop the share and get back to this. I want to get back to us here, because I want you to summarize here in terms of what it is, what can Mr. Business Owner do today, what's actionable that he can implement immediately to help take care of this type of situation?
I'm going to give you a couple of things. First of all, make sure you have a documented process in place with an escalation process with basic scripts. Number 1. After you've got that in place, then we need to start capturing data on what are the issues. And when you Pareto them out, you're probably going to find 1 or 2 major issues that you need to address first. There's typically, in most companies, there's 5 issues, 5 to 7. The top 2 are causing you 80% of the issues. Identify those top 2, put the processes in place to minimize them, and that's where we focus. So document your process, basic training on the people, identify the biggest constraint or the biggest issues, and then put plans in place to minimize or resolve those issues.
And anytime you're putting into doing this is going to save you multiple hours down the road.
Well, it not only saves you multiple hours on the road from a profitability standpoint at that space and time, but it increases your lifetime value of your clients, because they're going to buy from you again. So it's a double benefit. You minimize the time you spend fixing or fighting the fires, and you increase the revenue from a lifetime value standpoint, because people are going to want to buy from you again.
Do business with you again and again. Got it. Well, very cool. Joe, thank you very much. I hope everyone has enjoyed this decompression session again, and we will see you in a couple of weeks.